The Inquirer article, The Roots of Filipino Indiscipline, UST sociologist Crescencio Doma Jr. said that a lot of Filipinos in the Philippines tend to break laws because they don't consider certain offenses as serious, whereas, in other countries, clear punishments are given to offenses, regardless if they're small or large. He also said that our society lacks a strong sense of role modeling, which means public officials and law enforcers have the penchant for breaking the rules themselves. 18. As early as 1954, Filipino engineer and physicist Gregorio Y. Zara, March 8, 1902 to October 15, 1978, produced a two-way TV telephone, which can be considered as an improved version of earlier video phones. This invention, patented as Photo Phone Signal Separator Network, enabled callers to see each other on screen while talking, just like how Skype or FaceTime works today. Note, however, that video telephone, per se, is not 100% original Filipino creation. Its precursors included a one-way video phone, demonstrated publicly in 1927 between the U.S. Secretary of Commerce Herbert Hoover in Washington, D.C. and AT&T officials in New York City. An experimental, two-way video phone, meanwhile, was already being tested as early as 1930, between AT&T's Bell Laboratories and its corporate headquarters, both in New York City. Zara also has other equally impressive and energy-efficient innovations under his name. These included an alcohol-fueled airplane, wooden microscope, and solar energy absorber, among others. For his outstanding contributions, he received a Presidential Diploma of Merit and Distinguished Service Medal in 1959, Presidential Gold Medal and Diploma of Honor for Science and Research in 1966, and Cultural Heritage Award for Science Education and Aero Engineering, 1966. 19. In a speech in February 1953 before the delegates of the Philippines-Japan Youth Conference, Quirino said, "Personally, were I to consider that my wife and my 3 children were all killed by Japanese machine guns, I would swallow the Japanese allies now, but I am not living in the world alone. I have my remaining children and their children to follow. I am not going to allow them to inherit feelings of revenge," he added. 20. The Bagabo, one of the largest indigenous groups in the country, require their members who have reached the age of puberty to have their teeth filed and blackened. It is a beautifying procedure they consider as an ultimate rite of passage for every young Bagabo. To file the teeth, the candidate must place his head against the operator and grip a stick of wood between his teeth. Each tooth is then filed, leaving only the stump. After the sharpening, the teeth are blackened using either a deposit formed through a smoke coming from a charring bamboo or a powder known as tapal produced by the lamad tree. 22. Faye Del Mundo was a woman of many firsts. She founded the first pediatric hospital in the Philippines and also invented an improvised incubator, a cloth-suspended scale, and a radiant warmer made of bamboo that was widely used in rural areas. 23. Completed in 1727, the Baclayan Church in Bohol is considered to be one of the oldest churches in the country. Baclayan was the first choice of the Spanish Jesuit missionaries to be their seat, but fear of Moro marauders forced them to move to Loboc. It was only in 1717 that Baclayan became a parish, leading to the construction of the church. The church was built by a total of 200 native laborers who took coral stones from the sea, cut them into blocks, and lifted them using bamboo. To cement the blocks together, they used the white of about 2 million eggs. The church was completed in 1727 and obtained a large bell in 1835. Unfortunately, the Baclayan Church is one of the heritage sites in Bohol that was destroyed by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake that hit the province last year. 24. Located in Bujuanga in Palawan, the Calauad Island was declared a game preserve and wildlife sanctuary by the Presidential Proclamation No. 1578 under the Marcos administration. The sanctuary, which is also the only known savanna in the country, was created by the late dictator as a response to an appeal by the International Union of Conservation of Nature (IUCN) to save endangered animals in Kenya, Africa. With an area of 3,700 hectares, the Calauad Island Wildlife Sanctuary is where both African wildlife and endemic Philippine animals live in their natural state with minimum human interference. It is home to many species of African animals such as zebras, giraffes, waterbucks, gazelles, and impalas, as well as Philippine animals like Calamian deer, bearcat, sea turtle, and Palawan peacock pheasant among others. 25. The Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm in Puerto Princesa, Palawan started during the American occupation. Governor Luke Wright was the one who authorized its establishment on November 16, 1904. During its first few years, it faced several instances of attempted escapes, but when Col. John R. White became its superintendent in 1906, the colony started to become a huge success. 26. To escape the harassment and discrimination that are part of having a diminutive size, Alejandro Doran Jr. along with 30 other Filipino dwarves announced their plan to establish the country's first colony for little people. In an article published in The Guardian in 2011, Doran said that there was already an investor who donated 16,000 SQM of land near Manila, although additional funding is still needed to clear the fields and build the houses. Doran, a 35-year-old bartender who works at the Hobbit House, the country's only restaurant run entirely by little people, hopes that politicians will help them build their dream colony and even turn it into a tourist spot in the future. 27. According to Texas State Historical Association, both Nuevas Filipinas and Nuevo Reino de Filipinas were secondary names assigned to an area of Texas located above the Medina River. Antonio Margal de Jesus first used Nuevas Filipinas in a letter to the viceroy dated July 20, 1716. It was also used by missionaries in the area with hopes of gaining royal patronage, which Spain gave to the Philippines a century and a half earlier. The name regularly appeared on documents during the next 40 years but eventually disappeared towards the end of the 18th century in favor of Texas. 28. On December 11, 1994, Captain Ed was flying PAL Flight 434 en route to Tokyo from the Philippines. He had just assured the passengers of a beautiful day in Tokyo, when there was later on a sudden violent explosion. A notorious terrorist had gotten on board in Manila, left an improvised bomb underneath his seat, and disembarked in the Cebu stop. The terrorist Ramzi Yusuf would later be convicted for the Flight 434 bombing and the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. 29. Born in Pasay City, Ginny migrated to Guam with her family when she was 3. But with her father's advice, she returned to the Philippines to finish her high school and college education. As a successful animator for Pixar, her impressive portfolio includes Woody and Jessie the Cowgirl in Toy Story 2, Sully and Mike in Monsters, Inc., and Dory from Finding Nemo. In a 2003 interview with the Philippine Daily Inquirer, Ginny shared her experience working on Dory, the forgetful blue fish voiced by Ellen DeGeneres.